And thanks, everyone. For those of you who don't know, my name is Michael Piscatelli. I'm the Economic Development Administrator for the city. And I know Carlos has been working so closely with you, and we might have some redundancy on this slides just as because you've been working so hard both to support your own entities through some financial turmoil, as well as many of the people in your network and parishioners and others. All of that effort does not go unnoticed. We can't thank you enough for being on the ground and supporting people. And what we've got for you today is somewhat of a resource deck that, we'll give you an email copy of this. So you've got our contact information and a sense not only for where we are in reopen activities, but also some of the very important community support programs as we, move into phase 2 and people need to get kids out of the house. So they're going to go back to work and make sure we do that in a safe manner for everybody. And then start looking ahead, which is always so challenging to do because so much is right in front of us right now. But look, our job is to look ahead, right? So we're going to preview some of the headwinds we see on the horizon and some of the efforts that we're going to take to address those. And I'm going to welcome your thoughts and insights because we are far from knowing exactly where this is going to go, right? So what you're hearing and seeing and your thoughts are going to be really important to this process. So I'm getting a reputation around here for being a terrible presenter with the screen share, but I hope everyone can see this up on the screen there. Everyone see it? Someone nod? Okay, so this is the resource deck that you'll get a copy of. And again, 3 big areas of focus today: reopening, our community assistance, and then what it looks like going forward. I hope everyone's had a chance to go to the barbershop or hair salon. Many people have worked really hard I know, Rick, you have not, others have, in order to make that a very safe experience for people, get people back to work and in community settings. We always start with the community health update. All of the reopen criteria starts with controlling the virus, flattening the curve. Everyone knows the numbers. I'm sure you felt it both in your own families and with your community, just the significant impact that COVID has had personally, professionally, over 4,000 deaths here in the state of Connecticut and significant concentrations here in the city. But everyone should feel pretty good about where the numbers are going, right? Like this has been trending downward from this peak in April straight down through June. Which has given everyone a level of confidence that we can move into a reopen condition and get people back into restaurants and to dining safely. Some of the city programs, I think everyone by now is familiar with our web portal. We continue to add information to the web portal, including the most current information on public health, the testing sites, and some of our small business and other assistance programs. So if you're not familiar with it, you just click on City of New Haven Reopen, and that will take you to a portal that looks like this. And it will include all the application forms, and it'll include the Together New Haven program. So let's say you want to download a poster, share something about a specific business sector. That's all available from the web portal. For those of you who don't know, through the governor's order and approved by the state, we have a tax deferral program. So for those that had experienced some economic loss greater than 20% by their households or commercial enterprises, you can apply for the tax deferral program. So your taxes won't be due July 1st. You'll get 3 months to pay taxes. So that deferral period. This application, in order to be eligible for the program, you have to meet the criteria, demonstrate that you've got that hardship financially, and then file by June 30th. So it's very important that people file by June 30th, otherwise they'll be ineligible for the program, and taxes will be due July 1st and subject to enforcement beginning on August 1st. Everyone on this call I know has been so supportive of the additional testing programs. I think we're past that original hurdle of, are you getting tested only through symptomatic or non-symptomatic? And the mayor's been very clear, and our health director, Director Bond, as we get into a reopen mode, encouraging everyone to go for a test and continue to build up that market confidence. This is a little bit of an older flyer. The CVS site's going to be closing down. The website has all the current locations for testing. The other aspect to controlling the virus is marketing and getting everyone to a place where they feel confident wearing a mask at all times. I mean, unless you're a special circumstance, a health condition or something, everyone needs to wear a mask. And generally these are cloth masks. So the more people wear them, it builds market confidence, it de-escalates any tensions. What we've tried to do is give that more of a human touch with key influencers in the community. I know many people on this call have actually had their picture taken now. Really appreciate that. And you can download these posters, these really beautiful posters that you can share with your community. Spend a second on this slide because this has all of our contact information for specific sectors. So if it's commercial office, dining, outdoors, indoors, close the street. We've got contact information here. We've done webinars. If maybe you missed a webinar, you can certainly get a copy of it from us and watch it on the side. We've got people out going to the retail stores and also working with personal services, the nail salons, tattoo shops, doing as much as we can in terms of outreach to, again, support that level of confidence. If there is an issue, let's say there's a store or a restaurant where no one's wearing a mask or the seats are too close together, enforcement goes through 211. The state feels very strongly that they want to kind of roll up the perspective of what's happening statewide. So call 211, and that either complaint or issue will find its way back to us. If it's a licensed business, it goes to the health department. If it's not licensed, like a restaurant, not a restaurant, a retail store or something like that, it goes to the building department. And then we're tracking all that and sharing that information with the state. And you know, the one that I think we're hearing the most about is making sure there's good spacing on the tables. So we've really hard to make sure there's spacing on tables at restaurants. And the other one is mask wearing with employees. It's really hard for employees to wear the mask the whole day. It gets uncomfortable. But it's very important that people in our communities that either manage employees or work in front-facing environments or in back office kitchens wear the mask, take breaks outside, just so that we build that level of confidence. We've got 430 self-certified businesses through the state. You'll see the signs out front. We do a lot through the Together New Haven program in order to promote these businesses, help bring back customers. So this poster features Ricky D's. We've got about 50 of these. If there's a business that has slow sales or needs a little extra push from our marketing campaigns, let us know. We'll do a poster just like this for them. On the community side, I'll turn it over to Omina now. Maybe talk a little bit about daycares, and then we'll go through some of the other community programs that we've assisted in reopening. Omina, can you hear me? Okay, we'll come back when Alvina gets back on the call. These resource slides relate to specific areas in the community where we worked a little bit more with our city staff and with community providers to make sure we get out the gate the right way and safely. So with our early childhood and daycares, obviously there's lots of concern about the decompression and what that does on the economic side to daycares, as well as safety and cleaning protocols. We're ready to go June 20th to reopen daycares fully here in the city of New Haven, and the Office of Early Childhood has helped that along, and your contact is Omina. On summer camps, we had about 50 people on the call yesterday to support summer camps. Our overall contact is Felicia from the Parks Department, but we also have strong support from New Haven Public Schools as well as we open up summer camps on June 22nd. For now, no pools, no splash pads, and no contact sports. We're hopeful that contact sports like basketball will open up on July 6th. Carlos, as you know, is your contact on faith-based communities. Kayla Wallace runs our events committee. We're trying to navigate through as the state reopens what we're going to do with some of the big events come fall. Those include the Labor Day Road Race, the New Haven Grand Prix, some of the street festivals we do. But Kayla's your contact as we navigate events. And then very important for all of us, maybe a little bit, one-off, and it hasn't been as high profile for the city, but we do have a working group to support colleges and universities. Our economy is very dependent on the education sector and making sure that Yale has a great relaunch in the fall, as well as Southern and Albertus and UNH. So we have a working group of city staff that's set up specific for the off-campus activities, right? Underage drinking in the bars, maybe concentration in a frat house or something like that, all of which can really complicate a college or university's ability to control the virus on campus as well as in the community. So Rebecca Bombero from CAO is heading up that group. Okay, so the heart of today's conversation as well is give all of us a little bit of a sense for tools and techniques, what we're seeing going forward so that we can have a strong both community and economic bounce back. And we'll organize this into a couple of different segments. But the reason we're gonna start talking about this slide a little bit more, right? The bounce back in New Haven won't be like a light switch where everyone just goes back to work and the economy as what it was. Offices will come back slow. Education services, arts, entertainment, and tourism, like the Schubert, the hotels, that's 40% of our region's job base. And we're gonna need to work really hard to rebuild market confidence to people to go back to hotels again. Lots of concern until we can get people back into arts venues and obviously education. So we're keeping a very close eye as the economy bounces back statewide if there are specific impacts here in New Haven just because we're so closely tied to these two sectors. This is how we're going to approach it. Just going to slice it up and work the ground on all fronts, right? So supporting our business community, supporting people as they either go back into their old jobs or need to retool into new jobs. Make sure we're strong on market confidence and be well connected, right? As people are going to feel stressors at home and in the workplace and with their families. So just working the ground on all of these factors is going to be this pivot from what we've called Together New Haven to what forward looks like. And we'll break these up into individual segments. So let's start with housing, and maybe Serena, if you can pick this slide up, talk a little bit about what we're doing on the housing.
Yeah, Mike, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. Bear with me. If you don't hear me, my phone, my computer just kind of pops off every once in a while. But thank you for allowing us to share this information with you this afternoon. We have, for the last 90 days, you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Very concerned about our rental and home ownership markets and what this particular emergency could do to many of our tenants and the folks that are providing units for our tenants here in the city. So we started early on looking at the numbers and have been engaged with a consultant as well as our local partners to identify the need or the prospective need once we come over on the other side of this. And our numbers we got initially were staggering. We started this in April, and we ended up today looking at about 5,000 households that will be in need of some additional assistance for their rental payments as well as their mortgage payments. Early on, the state issued a moratorium on for folks that were paying rent, as well as for homeowners to give them a reprieve. So we've been working within that window. Last month, the governor decided to extend that for another month. So we have the month of July that we're working through as well, where folks are given a little bit of a break and not having to pay those rental payments as well as their mortgages. But we know that is going to end, and folks are going to be in a different place on the other side of that. So we started putting together, looking at different opportunities in terms of utilizing some of the federal funding that was coming into the state, particularly with the CARES funding that we were awarded, to look at what kind of programming we could use. And we have been working over the last couple of months on a tenant landlord workout program that will provide a percentage of rents to tenants working alongside and the tenant and the landlord. So the landlord would actually do a forgiveness of some of the rent that's owed. The tenant would pay 30% of their income given the fact that some of them may be still unemployed, some of them may have lost, or the additional supplemental unemployment will go away. And we're really trying to give them 6 months of trying to figure out a way to get back on track. And that's essentially what this program is going to do. It's going to provide resources to families that are renting in the city that have lost income during this crisis, and to bring them current on their rental payments. And it's a partnership. We've been talking to the landlords, we've been talking to constituents, and we're pretty much in a good place because we're not hearing a whole lot of pushback yet. But this is a program we think that will work, or at least give us some room for breathing, or give our tenants some room for breathing to get their lives back on track with the unemployment and the numbers that were produced based on our studies. In addition to that, we're working very closely. LCI, the Livable City Initiative, is currently working and has been working over the last 3 months to continue its efforts in housing code inspections, property maintenance and management. And we're still, believe it or not, in this environment, working on affordable development projects, and hope to continue doing that throughout and on the other side of this. So we're trying to listen to what our constituents are telling us, and we're trying to utilize the funding that's coming into the city in a very effective way. We want to be able to help. We don't want an influx of evictions on the other side of this. And so this has been developed to curtail that. And we hope that you all will support us in trying to do that and getting the word out to everyone.
Great. Why don't we pause there for a minute? As this program launches, right, LCI, if there's any concerns right now, just reach out to the LCI main number. I'll add that to the slide. And I know you've got some stuff going on later this afternoon, so maybe I'll pause here if anyone has any questions just for Serena in case you need to jump off.
Any questions at all?
Hi, Serena. This is Daryl Brooks. Any kind of assistance for homeowners? I know landlords and tenants are getting assistance. Or is there any plan for existing homeowners?
Yes, we are in the process. As I talked a little bit about this landlord-tenant workout program more than the homeowner program, because that is what we've been trying to get up and running first. Our goal would be to work with a very similar program for homeowners because they are also they are in a moratorium as well. But we want to put together something that will do a very similar thing, working with our housing counselors, working with the local agencies that currently do that work to expand. So yes, homeowners are our number one priority because there's two different types of landlords here in the city. We have our big landlords that have more than 2,000 units, and then you have your owner-occupied landlord that is struggling through mortgage payments and trying to maintain a rental unit where people have been laid off, and they're struggling as well. So yes, we're working on both sides of that, Daryl, and we'll continue to do that.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Great.
I've got a question. This is Jocelyn Gardner Spencer. I'm senior minister at United Church on the Green. I was wondering if you could speak to resources for people who are currently unhoused or on the verge of that. I've been in touch with a few people just this week, who one of whom's been calling 211, every day, and has been connected to the resources we know in New Haven, but there's nothing for her. And another who's looking for a room to rent, can't find one, etc. You know the stories. So I wonder if you could speak to that.
Yeah, well, those programs are run by the director of homelessness, Velma. I can't remember Velma's last name right now, but that is run out of CSA, and they're currently housing over 170 folks that were homeless or that were utilizing our shelters. They are been housed over the last 3 months in hotels. So I would suggest if they reach out to 211. If you could tell them to reach out to 211, they can get diverted to the programs that we're trying to do here. And I know that's hard, and I know that it takes forever to get through. And we can actually we can have Carlos send you Velma's direct contact information. That way she can get in touch with you and get the names of those people that are looking for help. and assistance.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the people
right.
that I spoke to who've called 211 were put in touch and told there was nothing for them. So
Right.
obviously
But
there's some challenge in the system.
right, CSA has done a great job in terms of gathering or helping and assisting during a time where we couldn't have folks in our regular shelters. So they are still working at it and looking at long-term solutions for how folks can be housed. So I will definitely have him send you Velma's number.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Great.
George. Her last name is George. I don't know why I forgot that.
Velma George, right? Thanks so much, Serena. And if you have to
All
jump
right.
early, we'll get you notes if anything else. Omina, thanks for jumping on as well.
Thank you, guys.
Great, thanks, Serena. Omina, if you want to just spend a minute on, before we advance the slides any further, on where we are with daycares and early childhood as we get ready for June 20th.
Sure. So as you all know, as of March, the month of March, all daycares were closed per the executive order, unless you were servicing those who were considered frontline workers or healthcare workers. As a result of that, hundreds of our providers, actually over 200, had to close their center doors, which meant that those who had to report to work had no childcare. And so we convened a series of listening sessions with providers beginning in May, one where we hosted a session with OEC, that's the Office of Early Childhood, to field questions for providers and to understand their needs as far as reopening confidently. The second conversation that we had was connecting providers to other providers who had been open during the pandemic so that they knew what kind of changes their colleagues were making, so that it didn't seem so tedious of a process to get through. And then we hosted our last session, which was with Dr. Leslie Sood from Yale New Haven Hospital, Children's Hospital, and with our city healthcare public health director, Maritza Bond, to think about reopening from a public health perspective. So our child care centers are set to open their doors on July 20th. They are not required to, but they are being allowed to open their doors. Providers are worried about the economic viability of their programs. There are class restrictions that they have to think about, sanitation of their centers, staffing levels, and some are even operating 7 days a week at this point to stagger staffing and children to be able to get as many people into their programs as they can. Unfortunately, they will have to be worried about not being able to serve as many families that they used to serve pre-COVID. The state is allocating dollars in the forms of grants and kickstarts for providers, and also supply grants, so that we can make sure that they have access to PPE and cleaning supplies. So it's going to be a very long summer. It is also going to be a challenging year ahead for our providers, as both the state and the city does its best to support providers as they seek to reopen.
That's great. Thanks, Omina. So let's turn now. I think, a lot of this is sector-based and just sort of macro in nature, but it gets very personal with people who are struggling financially and trying to navigate all of these different programs, maybe first time entering systems like unemployment or something. So Rick Kaiser's on the call. Rick runs the Financial Empowerment Center for the city and leads a team of our very best certified financial counselors. So maybe Rick, you could talk a little bit about services we're offering.
Very well, thank you. Yes, good evening. Glad to see a lot of familiar faces on the call, people who've helped bring this work to fruition here in the city. As a bit of a background, I don't know if everyone's aware that this was a perfect storm, so to say, in our going down this pathway and bringing professional financial counseling as a embedded public service free to the residents of New Haven. It really took a lot of willpower on the part of the Board of Alders and the administration to carve out some of the funds to make sure that this would be a deliverable service here in our city. We're amongst a group of cities nationwide, over 25, that are working under a Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund model that, again, sees to it that everyone bringing these services to the community are trained and then go through certification and tested to assume these duties. They are well versed in many areas of financial challenges that people are facing currently. As the indication on the screen before you, there's some of the areas that we hit upon. We're seeing quite a few people coming to us these days through, especially centered around the housing issues and issues with the unemployment. And also we're also enveloped in the tax season. So we're supporting the VITA tax program. So there's a lot of service that can be had and will actually have great effect for the citizens of our city. I encourage that if you have someone that at any time might benefit from these services, just pick up the phone, drop us an email, or even you can get an appointment by going on the link on via the web.
Great, thanks, Rick. And I imagine there'll be some questions toward the end here as we kind of go into some details on this. Not directly city programs, but wanted to make sure you are aware, had a sense for what was happening on the workforce development side. We support New Haven Works through the Board of Alders, gives an assistance agreement every year, sort of a more local workforce program, as well as the Workforce Alliance, which is the front portal for dislocated workers statewide. I think everyone now has been knows or has been touched personally by someone who might be dislocated from their regular job or has had to file for unemployment. Wanted to put the websites up here because everyone may not be familiar with the additional services that are now offered. So at the Workforce Alliance, even though the front door is closed, they've put over 9,000 online training seminars, which are available to people looking to skill up and maybe build a better portfolio and resume while they're unemployed, or just people looking to start maybe a second job or a side gig of some sort to support their family income. But if you go to the Workforce Alliance homepage, it's literally 3 clicks to get you into that online platform, which is located under the free online learning portal. And if there are any questions there, I put the contact information on the left. And then when New Haven Works, as you know, this is a more personalized service. It's case management driven as we work to identify qualified people for jobs with partner employers like Yale University, Yale New Haven Hospital, some of the construction contractors around town as well, Amazon. They do their work through registration and you enter the system. There are 12 days left to pre-register for the next orientation class. So for those of people in your communities that may be looking for work, we've got about 12 days now and just hit the pre-registration button so that you can get involved with New Haven Works. On the small business side, organize our services in sort of 3 main areas. The first, for small businesses that were not digital, it was really challenging when the pandemic started because there wasn't an easy way sort of for their customers to go online and buy that way. So we started something called the Digital Marketplace to help small businesses go digital, create gift card programs or online purchasing platforms. That is available from the Together New Haven website if people are looking to go digital. We also have quite a bit of technical assistance available for people working on business strategy. So maybe starting a delivery service, maybe more curbside pickup or something to help the business along when your traditional markets were drying up in some ways. So Kathy Graves with the contact number on the side will help with business strategy as well. And then the third area, I think periodically everyone hears about maybe a new grant program that came out or a small business loan program. And they just, they dry up almost as fast as they're announced. I think what's very important, what we wanted to emphasize on this call is those funds are all getting replenished. So don't necessarily be dissuaded by the fact that maybe the first tranche of money was already subscribed and no more access. So the Yale Fund over at Yale University is still available. We're hopeful that the Chamber of Commerce Fund will be replenished. And we're very close with the Community Foundation to launch a new program to support small business that would include some of the city's funding as well. So multiple different ways for small business that might need additional working capital until business returns to something close to pre-COVID levels. Very important as well, we did something called the Civic Space, a virtual conference back in May. It was a great way to build a conversation with people in different sectors of the economy that we were sort of navigating the same challenges both here and around the country. We had some national speakers on the Civic Space. If you're interested in what we learned on commercial offices or economic rebound or community well-being and supporting mental health, those webinars can be downloaded from the Civic Space website if you just want to kind of, just watch one or two of them. And we're going to continue this through the year. So we'll be organizing more Civic Space conferences. We would welcome something from the faith-based community if there are people on this call that want to, take a look at it from the lens of faith. This was sort of a trial thing, right? We didn't know where this was going to go, but it was really rewarding. And I think all of us, we entered this pandemic with a certain lens around public health and an economic condition. We're certainly in this particular phase much more cognizant of the disparities that were uncovered and the real challenge around systemic racism. It's not just a police issue, and we've got about 120 people in our group. Dr. Dalal, and on the community services side probably has another 100 people. And we're learning as well, and we're moving toward a series of very specific action statements to do our part. It's not just a police issue, it's all of us. The picture on the left, if anyone gets Time Magazine, didn't pick up on the backstory. This was done by Titus Kaffar, New Haven-based artist. He runs Next Haven at 169 Henry Street. And not only is the art just incredibly beautiful and moving, the story behind it as well. And if you haven't picked up on it yet, I'd encourage everyone to read his piece that's on Time's website, which is called "I Cannot Sell This Painting." And thank you so much for letting us listen in, join the conversation, and helping us along as we get better every day as well. So with that, I'm going to stop the screen share and just see everyone again and open it up for questions. We've got Rick still. I can answer some of the questions that might come from housing. Elaine is here to help keep the notes. Omina and Carlos, if anyone has any questions or other areas that maybe we didn't cover in enough detail. Carlos, what did we miss? Gage, Rick, anything we might have missed?
I would like to offer that, I understood this was going to be a bit of a brief interlude this evening, but I would like to reach out to the entire group and offer that more intent presentation about services. We'd like to set up a Zoom meeting with our team and let them become familiar to you. By chance, possibly people were able to catch the press conference that Elm City Communities held today, and two members of our team were there presenting on how they feel the New Haven Financial Empowerment Center will impact the lives of the residents of the Elm City Communities. And so I'd like to have that opportunity to meet with the group again in the very near future.
And I see Reverend Grubbs on the call, all of you, and certainly Reverend Grubbs champions on the complete count for the US Census that continues right through the summer. Any chance you can get to just remind people in your communities to, if they haven't already, fill out the census form and fill it out completely for everyone that lives in their household. Even not just general immediate family members, but everyone in the household, so that we get a complete count and get all of our federal reimbursement to support the community.
Yeah, and to Mike's point, we are, even though the coronavirus is upon us, we are still doing that work and trying to do outreach through our advocacy and education project and members of a group called Mothers and Others for Justice. So I would encourage anyone who has any interest, and I'm sure that most people do, and if not all people do on this call, it's critically important because the resources don't come to this community without enough individuals who complete the census. I also wanted to say to Rick in particular, we have an employment specialist, and at this point, we're beginning to look at even our reopening, because there are certain sections of CCA that are open, but there are other sections where people are working from home. So I'm sure that one of my staff members, who's the employment specialist, has connected with you, but I can tell you that that is something of great interest to us, and we'd really like to be able to be a part of what you're trying to do, Rick, on the financial empowerment side, because it's not just for us a matter of whether or not a person gets a home, but whether or not the person and the family, head of household, and the children in the system can stay in that home going forward. So I would really welcome that as an opportunity to connect with you around the financial empowerment.
Great.
I was wondering, this is not exactly the topic of today's call, but you mentioned work at the city level around addressing systemic racism. That's an issue that I and my congregation have been working on for a long time, and I'm wondering whether there's opportunity for the religious communities to be part of that conversation as it unfolds, and particularly around the specific objectives that you're addressing.
We would certainly welcome the assistance. I would suggest we're both in discovery and early action conversations, building both internal capacity to be meaningful in our approach, and also to build a larger tent with our partnerships. And it's very much a work in progress. So, taking a program review, just diving into all of our programs and, looking deeper to see where the disparities have been over time, and, whether it's like the facade program or something like that, to our workforce and hiring practices, to the projects we're picking to go out with. Like whatever, we need a lot of help, and we would welcome your assistance.
Thanks. I look forward to it.
And to that point in particular, I just got an email from Rabbi Brockman today about a conversation. So Jocelyn, I could connect with you separately and send that email along, because I think it's a meaningful conversation. It is not just a New Haven-based conversation, but it's
I got that too. Thank you, Benita.
Wonderful. I'm glad you did.
Yep.
And Pastor Steele, maybe you can talk to us about your efforts as well around this issue. And maybe you get some interested leaders in your work as well.
Yes, we have formed a social justice collaborative, and it's made up of over, at this point, 23 organizations and interfaith leaders and elected officials. And we are getting ready to begin conversation as it deals with systemic racism in the city, and to come up with a plan in order to move forward. We recently had our March Sunday, and we had over 300 people that came out, and I'm getting individuals by the day who's calling to join the efforts. And so that's something that I'm willing to send out some information to everybody on, if I can just utilize this email chain.
Yep, absolutely. And we'll make a copy of the presentation deck out there with our contact information so we can stay closely connected. This is going to be a long journey, and doing it together is going to be really, really important.
All right, thank you so much. But I'll definitely send something to you guys, and you can send it out.
Appreciate it. Carlos, want to close us out?
I think we don't have any more questions, Mike. If I would like to ask a pastor to guide us with prayer again, so that we can have a great weekend and illumination in our lives to continue serving the city and our residents. Does anybody want to volunteer? Reverend Grubbs, would you like to honor us with some prayer?
What would it be like for a minister not to pray when called upon? Okay, I see that Heidi Thorson wants to get the information. So if you, my email address is bgrubs@ccahelping.org, and or you can, so just send it to me and I'll get you the invitation. So let's pray. God of all care, justice, and love, we thank you for this time together to advance not just your kingdom in a global sense, but in a very specific sense, that people would be fed, that people would have access to opportunities, and that people would be healthy, safe, and prosperous. We thank you for the dedication of all of those, both within the city and within the city borders, and also beyond the city, who are concerned about serving individuals, bringing about justice, and making sure that the ills of racism do not continue to descend upon us in ways that are not going to help us be in community and be a community of hope and faith and prosperity. We continue to rely on you to give us guidance and inspiration. And so I would pray specifically for the residents of the city writ large, but also the city staff, that they might continue to have the energy and the ability to advance this work. It's a tough bit of work, but we know that we can do all things because you give us the strength to do that. So thank you, God, for this time, in the name of all that is good and wonderful, and in the name of Jesus and the Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Mike, do you have anything else?
No, just wanted to say thank you on behalf of all of us on the team for giving us time and share the table with us today.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Please do not hesitate to send me an email or give me a call if you need anything.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks all. Have a good night.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you all.